town administrator has graciously come up and offered to say a few words after I hit him on the head a couple times. So let me introduce Bill Wrigley.
Good morning, and I want to welcome everyone here. My name is Bill Wrigley. I am the town administrator in Stow, and I've been happy to be your town administrator for over 15 years. I'm also a proud veteran. So this is a special day for me, and I'm sure for all the veterans here in the room and across the country. So the first thing I want to do is thank everybody for coming and taking a few moments out on this special day to share the moments here, the breakfast, the friendship, and a few comments from me. I'd like to thank all those who have put this on, Stow Lions Club, Council on Aging, and any of the others that have prepared this, the church for allowing us to use this space for this day. So I want to thank everybody that's here, and give yourself a round of applause. As I said, I'm a proud veteran, and we're here to honor all the men and women who have served in the past or who are currently serving as a member of our armed forces. The reason we do that, in my opinion, is that the U.S. Armed Forces are the primary reason why we're able to benefit from the blessings of liberty that we've enjoyed in this country since its founding. The U.S. Armed Forces are primarily responsible for that, in my opinion. In 1776, for a little history lesson, not that anyone needs one, people like Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin and John Adams were asked to draft a Declaration of Independence for the Continental Congress in Philadelphia. As a Declaration of Independence implies, we were intending as colonies to tell the British and the rest of the world we were declaring our independence. In part, it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pretty profound concepts. They were pretty novel at the time. And what did they mean? They mean to say that inherently the nature of man is such that we are created equal. Inalienable means these inherent rights can't be denied by any other man or any government of men. They're ours, and they're ours to keep. Again, novel concept. What's implied there is that government, in order to be legitimate, its authority originates with the consent of the governed. That'd be us, the people. And it requires to be legitimate the rules of law, again, from us. Now that declaration, as profound as it was, obviously was a shock to the British and most of the rest of the governments of the world. And as we were declaring independence, we were also declaring war. Because everybody knew that as soon as we declared our independence, the British were going to tell us that we couldn't declare our independence. So how would we secure and protect that independence and these rights? Somebody had to fight and die for them. At that time, essentially, we had civilian militia. That's who our military was. We also had a country that was pretty much divided. There were many of loyalists at the time that were reasonably content being a colony. Other than excessive taxes here or there, the British were an ocean away. For the most part, we ran our own lives. And our founding fathers weren't certain that they were going to be able to muster enough civilian militiamen to take up the cause for these vague notions of democracy and liberty. But they were willing to take the chance. And they found that there were a lot of Americans who felt the same way. And they were willing to fight and die for that. The odds were pretty great. Probability of success was low. And we were divided. Not good odds. But we prevailed. Prevailed because the American fighting people came out and defended those concepts. Less than 100 years later, a president named Abraham Lincoln invoked the same thoughts as the Founding Fathers, and he did it purposely. When he said, 7 years ago, our fathers brought upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He was reminding a nation that was in the middle of a vicious civil war. He was the loneliest and most embattled person in this country. He had no consensus for support. There were tens of thousands of American boys and men killing each other. The papers were beating him up, calling him disloyal, calling him worse. I mean, if you think the press is bad now, some of what Abraham Lincoln went through would make you cry. But he didn't waver, and he didn't tire, and he didn't falter, and he didn't fail. Why? Because he believed, as the Founding Fathers did, that this country was the last best hope for man. That there was a greatness and goodness about our government, our concepts, and our people that was different. The world hadn't seen it before. And so he went through 4 years of this hell to ensure at the end this country would remain whole and carry on. I think we all look back at both the Founding Fathers and Abraham Lincoln and those who fought and died in the Civil War and say thank you. I think. I do. I'm sure most of us do. Wouldn't be here today if it weren't for those sacrifices, many of whom were uncertain why they were fighting. Some were fighting against slavery. Some were fighting to keep the Union whole. Others hated the South or the North and vice versa, or afraid the British or the French would invade because we were weak. Whatever the reasons were, they fought, and it worked out. Almost 100 years later, President Kennedy said the following words during the height of the Cold War against Soviet communism. He said, "Let every nation know, whether they wish us well or ill, that we'll pay any price, bear any burden, and meet any hardship. We'll defend any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and success of freedom." Liberty and freedom is the same thing. So now, for 200 years, this country had been fighting and defending the precepts of democratic government. So who are some of these we that President Kennedy talked about? We will, we will. American servicemen and women is the we. And really, who are these people? What are the essential qualities or characteristics of the American service member? They're ordinary, common people, for the most part, that go into the military for various reasons, coming from various parts of the country. But not too long into the training and the education and the change of the way of life, the military establishes a state of being that's different than civilian life. They establish a devotion to purpose that isn't common in civilian life, a strong devotion to purpose. In addition to that, I found myself, and I'm sure many others did, the whole idea of the words and notions of duty, honor, and code are real. They're not just terms. It's a way of life. You become more self-reliant, self-sufficient, self-motivated, self-sacrificing. You're part of a team. Can't do it alone, military won't work. You lose that way. People die that way. And in the end, there's a level of consciousness, I think, that the average serviceman becomes aware of that they may not have had before in life. There's a sense of conviction, and in the end, there's a sense of courage that comes with it. And all of those things are required to fight wars, as long as there will be wars. And the military did that for me, and I think for most other veterans. Changes your life. I'd like to just describe briefly a story about a veteran who posthumously was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. His name was Lieutenant Michael Murphy. Lieutenant Michael Murphy was a Navy SEAL, and in 2005, he and 3 other SEALs were dropped off in the mountains of Afghanistan to chase down a terrorist who had killed women and children. It was a fact, no doubt about it, and in hindsight it's been established. 4 men tasked with going out, finding and locating this terrorist who had, it turns out, estimated over 100 armed militia with him, holed up in the mountains. These 4 SEALs spent 3 days tracking, reconnoitering, locating this man. They were walked on by 2 goat herders who had nothing to do, had no knowledge, just 2 Afghan goat herders, discovered these 4. These men had a tragic choice to make. If they were to let these 2 goat herders go, there was a good chance their position would be revealed by these 2 to this gentleman and his small army. The alternative was, however, to kill him. The rules of engagement would have given them the right to kill these 2 goat herders. They debated it, talked about it, in the end they let him go. The 2 goat herders did reveal their position, and they were set upon by over 100 armed men. These 4 SEALs fought for hours, outmanned, outgunned. Lieutenant Michael Murphy crawled out into the middle of an open field, being shot at the entire time, wounded already. All 4 had been wounded multiple times and continued to fight. He went out there because his communication wouldn't work where they were seeking cover behind the trees and the rocks and the outcroppings. And they were just holding on, but they needed support, reinforcements. So he willingly crawled out in the middle of an open space so he could get the signal out, knowing that he'd die. And he did. But before that, one of the other 4 crawled out there to bring him back, both getting wounded. And in the end, 3 of these 4 Navy SEALs died. 1 survived. His name's Marcus Luttrell, 6'4", twin of a brother in Texas. Both went Navy SEAL. Common kids out of high school. Became something different. Marcus Luttrell survived. And he survived because the same goat herders, their small village, while he was lying bleeding to death, took him in and hid him. And the signal got out from Lieutenant Michael Murphy, and a helicopter of 18 Special Forces was sent in at nighttime. They got shot down. All 18 died. A second force was sent out of Army Rangers and other Special Forces to hoof it in 50 miles in the mountains from the nearest base. They finally got him. They carried Marcus Luttrell out alive, badly hurt and wounded, and they carried the other 3 dead SEALs out. They brought him back. Now that, to me, epitomizes what the American military is really about. I think there's an old saying that says every man dies, but not every man really lives. Michael Murphy really lived. He knew why. He was a volunteer. He was educated. He did what he thought was right. So what is he to me? He's a patriot, as is all veterans. What's patriotism? To me, it's those who love, support, and defend their country. Well, what is it that veterans love, support, and defend? I think, as I was preparing for this, I think of the common political principles that we live by, the common culture that we share, our common laws, and our common language. They're still unique in most of the world. That's, I think, really what a patriot thinks about. It's those shared common democratic precepts. And these precepts excite your senses and your emotion. It's not an intellectual thing. Patriotism's really heartfelt, in my opinion. And that's what this is about. And to me, just in closing, I would say this. The next time you're at an event where the national anthem's being played, just casually look in the crowd. The people you see standing straightest, or trying to, there's a good chance that's a veteran. And if you see one with a tear in his eye, you can pretty much guarantee it is. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bill. That should bring tears to all our eyes. I thank you all for coming, and again, I'd like to thank the Lions Club for their great assistance. Council on Aging would not be able to do it alone, and they, thank you all for coming. And there's plenty of seconds up there if anybody wants refills. So go up and help yourselves and enjoy. And stick around for a while if you want to chat with your neighbors, other veterans. Just do it. Thank you.
Can I make a quick announcement?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Paul Trunfield. I'm with the Stow Independent. And first of all, I want to thank every one of you for what you've done for our country.
Hello.
But I was wondering if we could get a picture of all the veterans for the Stow Independent newspaper. Would that be possible? If we could get a picture of all the veterans for the Stow Independent newspaper?
Sure.
Maybe over against that wall there or something like that?
Get down there, will you? All the veterans getting, hey.
Hey, James.
How you doing?
Oh, the golden years. Go have my picture taken.
Good.
Rockies.
Albie. Will all the veterans get down there, please?
Okay. He sounds better than he has. Oh, yeah. He's got a lot of pain from the other side. Now it shows up. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Not going to be able to.
That's my brother. Here we go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.